Let's go to far north Queensland and the Cairns Taipans. Their contract situation is a pretty easy one for them right now. And let's be honest, Olgun, it all started with re-signing Jack McVeigh. They had to do that. Now the fun begins.
That mutual option was unbelievably important to pick up. I don't know if they were planning to do it. I don't know if they were gonna find the money, but they found the money. They wanted McVeigh back. McVeigh clearly wanted to return, and so now they can build around him. And like Pete said last episode, McVeigh is out there doing a bit of recruiting. But I think the next one is also locking in Rayne Smith. He's got a team option. That also feels like a no-brainer. If you have someone who, again, I don't know if he's going to start for them, but again, you have a local player who is rotational at the very least. So bringing him back is important. And then what imports do you bring in? Can you nail the imports? Because you always think if they're able to nail the imports this season and Sam Wardenberg could stay healthy, then they could have been something. But they went through just a series of unfortunate events with the injuries, and then the imports, some of them just weren't at the level. So they weren't able to compete consistently. So I think one more marquee is very important, especially if Adam Ford wants to do his strategy of getting an import in the middle of the season. That marquee is important.
So, Pete, Forty's a gambler. Forty's the sort of guy that likes to go to the table and push the chips in and kind of see whether we end up with red or black. Would there be a bit of a change? A lot of the gambles didn't work this season and probably didn't in the past as well. Would there be a bit of a change in philosophy here to go for some more sure things, or will he keep trying to kind of ride the wave?
Well, it's a bit of both, but I think the biggest thing he'd want to make sure is that they have backup plans in place for worst case scenarios. Because unfortunately, you talk about things being out of their control. They've had worst case scenarios for the last 3 or 4 years with injuries at the wrong time. The imports, to be honest, before that, they've nailed imports for a long time. Like they've come in and had, like, Tajima McCall was awesome. You go back before that, the Cam Oliver, Scott Machado time, Cairns Taipans, you usually see, geez, those imports are really good. And then people would have the running joke of what other NBL team is going to get them next year. Yeah. Right? That was just the way it always worked. But this year, the part, it just all combined into one of Admiral Schofield wasn't up to the level that they expected. We know that. Andrew Andrews became very serviceable at times, but then Marcus Lee had to do a whole lot more than they originally signed him for. So losing Sam Wardenberg as early as they did in the season had Marcus Lee go from a 15 to 20-minute backup big, potentially playing alongside Sam Wardenberg to get a rest at times to, hey, we need you to play 30 minutes and stay on the floor. And he wasn't able to do that. Whereas they were hoping if someone goes down, well, we can replace them with a high-level import. If they tried to replace Marcus Lee, because he's been around the league long enough, you have to pay him out as well. That's even more money. So I think hearing Adam Ford understand they want to get the marquees and keep an import spot up their sleeve is crucial. But again, you need to go and get those marquees then.
Well, you got to sign Wardenberg. McVeigh was a great signing, but Wardenberg is the most important player in that franchise. He takes you to winning situations. We saw how they changed when he was in the lineup this season. They were a solid basketball team. So I think you must make him a priority over everything else. Now that you've got McVeigh, you sign Smith, you get Wardenberg, then the selection of the import, the pressure eases a little bit. Now, look, obviously, they don't have the talent basis of most of the top teams in the competition, but they're a pesky team. Adam Ford has them play a certain way. But I just think Wardenberg is a big piece, and they've got to get him back.
I don't know if you've heard anything different. I'd be surprised if Wardenberg returns to the Cairns Taipans. The other thing this team has to do is they have to lock in their local players early. They dawdled last season. We were doing marketplaces and we were looking at this Cairns roster.
We're in Vegas.
It was filling up at a snail's pace. They have to lock them in early, and they have to go after some of the local players that are on the market, because the college market is going to be a little bit bare. I don't know if they're going to be able to have the money to go get the high-level dudes coming out of college, and Oscar Clark and Anthony Dell also. Outside of those two, I don't know if there are any functional impact players who are going to come to the NBL. A lot of guys are going to exhaust their eligibility in college. So the direction that the Taipans have gone historically, even this offseason, Rayne Smith, Mawat Mag, I don't know if that option is going to be there. So making sure that you nail the locals of the locals that are currently in the league and are becoming free agents, that's extremely important, and do your work early.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Sam Wardenberg either. I'd love to see him there, but we all understood, I think, that last year was his last thing. I don't want to run it back with 40. We've got some money. We've got Jack McVeigh in this year, and I feel like he's just going to, again, a new challenge for Sam Wardenberg. And it's going to be very expensive and almost impossible to do. But if Keanu Pinto ends up lining up in the 3x3 alongside 40, we know the relationship those two have, but is that the path you go down? And we talk about them saying, hey, we're one of the big boys now, we're going to throw money around. Is this okay? We need to prove it to the fans that we're going to be able to really go in there and compete. And if it's going to cost us, if you're already spending $2.5 million, whatever it is, if you're already spending over $2 million on a team, what's the difference between 2.2 and 2.5 when you're already in the salary?
That's the words of someone who doesn't own fee.
But it's spoken like someone who doesn't have 2.5.
Well, I say that, but what's the point of doing that again? It's like, okay, we're going to spend $2 million and not have backup plans, or we're not going to be able to get anything done. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it right. And maybe that is a Keanu Pinder alongside.
Last season, there was a big offer on the table from the Cairns Taipans in Keanu Pinder. But unfortunately, the money in Japan, he basically 3 or 4x'd his contract. So that was difficult. But there is mutual interest there because Keanu Pinder and Adam Ford still get along very, very well.
I'm not sure he's having the time of his life in Asia as well, Keanu Pinder. I think he's enjoying the experience, but I think living back in Australia would be something
That's necessarily
him to consider.
It's necessarily the trade-off when you're in Japan. It's so much more money, but the quality of life in Australia is undefeated.
And I mentioned the 3x3 thing. It's a real thing in terms of I fully expect him to be there at the World Cup with Adam Ford. He was part of the 3x3 camp a couple of weeks ago. Then you're starting to look for, hey, let's go to the Olympics together for 3x3 here. 40, you're the coach. I'll be there. I know 40's thrown up in past about Mitch Creek joining that 3x3, which is a different show altogether, but that becomes enticing. Let's just stay around each other. Let's do all these 3x3 things as well as playing an NBL alongside Jack McVeigh. It just makes sense, but it's not going to be cheap.
Big play.
It's not going to be cheap.
Look, a 4 and 5 of Jack McVeigh and Keanu Pinder is dynamic as hell and would be a perfect starting spot for a franchise.
What if you put Milton Doyle next to that? Because we spoke about him last episode when we were talking about Melbourne.
You want to be able to afford them both is probably the key thing to say, because you mentioned last episode that Milton Doyle is expensive, but the process of winning becomes the key thing. Of Milton Doyle, you know what? I want to get back to winning. I want to play alongside Jack McVeigh. Oh, Keanu Pinder's a chance. I might take a little less to go up there. And Milton Doyle wants to become an Australian too at some point.
Yeah.
So understanding that, yeah, you know what? I might have to take a little less to be able to keep the opportunity to do that. Being alongside Jack McVeigh, who, by the way, is the type of guy that he'll pay for all dinners anyway. So it doesn't really matter. You can save a little bit there on the back end of the contract. But that starts to look like a whole lot of fun. But you also don't want to top load the roster with 3 guys, 4 guys, and have real thin backups, because we've seen what happens when Cairns do that and they fall apart.
This is where we override the hope with a bit of reason and reality. That Keanu Pinder coming back to the NBL would be in that $1 million area. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is in world basketball. That's just what it is. And like you said, the teams that are doing well right now, they're the deep teams. Like you look at teams across, you don't just load up on all your elite players. And this is across world basketball. You look at the NBA, it's the same thing. It's not the teams that go and that have a super team of 2 or 3 elite guys. No, it's the ones that can go 8, 9, 10 deep.
The one that interests me though, Jack, is Andrew Andrews, because he's a guy that generated a lot of emotion in the NBL fans. He was brilliant at times. Then other times, seemingly, he just couldn't get the simplistic stuff right in games. And, you know, I'm inclined to hold him a little bit closer in terms of my recruiting process this year. I think there's something in there with him. And I'm pretty conservative when it comes to recruiting players, especially at the point guard spot. If I think I have a guy that will give me a 7.5 out of 10, I'm more than likely looking to bringing him back. And again, the same thing that we always mention, Pete, they're always better the second year around.
Yeah, he seems like a late phone call for me as well, though. Let's see what the rest of the team looks like. Let's not completely shut the door on it, which I think we can say about a few other imports around the league from NBL 26. Let's see what the rest of the team looks like. Keep that phone call there. And if we need to go down that path, when he's that pass-first guy, if there's enough other scoring and playmaking, I thought he was terrific. But we'll just wait and see what the rest of the team looks like.
So he was a good organizer. I think if you're the Taipans, though, if you can go get a stud at the point guard spot, my feel is that would be preferable. Just someone who can take a bit of the attention away from Jack.
What kind of stud are you looking at?
Just a stud.
You may as well. We've thrown the same 2 names out for every team.
Just any stud import. And I get there's this thing that we do in the NBL where we want guys to return, right? But look at when Kendrick Davis first came to the league, that was so exciting. When Parker Jackson Cartwright first came, that was exciting. There are really high-level point guards around the world who would come into this league and do wonders. They'd be 20 and 8 guys. And I feel like if you can go find one of those, maybe that's a little bit cheaper. Kendrick Davis last year was a little bit cheaper. He does really well, gets more expensive. Get that guy who is ready to get to that next level and can come to this league and really contribute. And I think that's the way to go. Find that stud.
Anything that we need to finish up with from anyone?
Not on the breakers. Not that I'm at liberty to say right now. But what is it?
Not that I'm at liberty to say right now. What about that?
There a lot of cogs are turning right now. Again, in the NBL, otherwise, teams and negotiations happening. We've spoken about Kendrick Davis, right? There are negotiations happening in Sydney with him. There's an offer on the table for him. Angus Glover, my reporting, he just re-signed with Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. That's an important wingy player, someone who shoots the ball at a high level, can create, and it feels like John Brown III, a contract for him it feels like that's on the offing as well. That feels like it might be maybe quite close.
Weirdly enough, I feel like the next episode we do will be a big one because a lot of those key impact local guys are on the teams who are still alive we haven't spoken about yet. You mentioned the Elijah Peppers. All of those key guys, the Bull Qual and the Quach Malawach, are teams that are still playing or we haven't got to. So that'll be really interesting the next time we get together.
And we only touched on it slightly, but I think we'll have a lot more information about the prospects of the coaching carousel in another few weeks as well.
I agree.
It's all going to start to shake out. Blank canvas for a lot of these teams, and that's the fun part for us on Marketplace. We do it with thanks to Paywise. Thank you to Pete. Thank you to Olgun. Thank you to Derek. And most importantly, thank you to you for watching. You are going to see a whole lot more of us from here on in. As it happens, Marketplace will be the #1 place for all of your news and information. We'll catch you next time.